My ex-boyfriend fabricated an entire career, deceived me, and ended our relationship with a $367 check. But when I walked into his gathering, I made sure he regretted every moment. You guys, I'm still processing what happened last weekend. Replaying the events in my mind makes me question if it was all just a dream. Nope. My overdrawn credit card and ice cream stains on my couch confirm it was all too real. Ethan and I had been together for 2 years. 2 years, not just a casual fling. We had our Sunday Netflix marathons, awkward holiday dinners with our families, and that quirky couples yoga class he insisted we try, which we both completely failed at. We thought we had it all figured out. Sure, things weren't perfect, are they ever? I believed we were solid. We even talked about moving in together this summer. He had a habit of leaving his socks everywhere, texting during movies, and making unsolicited comments about my appearance. That dress makes your waist look wider. Or, have you thought about changing your hairstyle? I always brushed it off as his version of honesty. The old me was a pushover. Last Friday, Ethan texted me about a work dinner he was having. He never included me in his professional life, claiming it wasn't appropriate. Honestly, I was excited. After splurging on a new dress, goodbye, budget, I spent ages getting ready. I followed a YouTube makeup tutorial and used the fancy straightener I reserved for special occasions. This upscale downtown restaurant had tiny portions and no visible menu prices. Red flag number 1. When I arrived, Ethan was there with his colleagues, Liam and Noah. I felt an odd vibe as soon as I walked in. Ethan barely acknowledged my presence, only managing a half-hearted stand from his chair. "You're late," he remarked. I was 2 minutes late due to parking difficulties. He glanced at my outfit and said, "Oh, you chose that?" Not quietly, either. My cheeks flushed as his friends exchanged glances. Just to clarify, I was wearing a dark green dress that I thought looked great. I joked, "Did I miss a dress code?" He shrugged and said, "They already ordered appetizers." Great. The next hour was filled with Ethan rambling about a job I couldn't quite grasp. His friends nodded along, and he interrupted or corrected me every time I tried to join the conversation. When I mentioned a customer from my job, Ethan chimed in, saying she didn't really understand how things worked in the real business world, as if my retail experience was insignificant. I had managed a store for 3 years. As I sat there, I grew increasingly uncomfortable, wondering if Ethan had always been this condescending or if he was just putting on a show for his friends. Either way, it was a bad look. I mentioned to Liam that his coworker, Mia, was the one who introduced us. Ethan cut me off mid-sentence, saying, "Yeah, Mia felt sorry for her. I was just being nice." He laughed. My stomach dropped. That was not how it happened. Mia had warned me about Ethan's ego before setting us up, but she also said he was a decent guy. Clearly, that was a lie. I excused myself to the restroom to avoid crying in front of them. In the stall, I texted Mia, "What is going on?" When I saw that Ethan had tagged himself at the restaurant for a boys' night out on Instagram, I felt invisible. Mia called me immediately, but I put her on hold to keep the guys from seeing me cry. I splashed water on my face, reapplied my makeup, and gave myself a sad pep talk in the mirror about maintaining my dignity during dinner. When I returned to the table, they were laughing about something, but fell silent when I sat down. Fantastic. The server brought our main courses, and Ethan continued to mock my food choice. I had opted for a simple pasta dish because I was anxious about the bill. He kept making comments about carb loading for a marathon. That's a bold choice for your body type. Each remark felt like a paper cut, and they quickly added up. I barely touched my food, pushing it around my plate and counting the minutes until I could leave. When Noah asked Ethan about a presentation, Ethan bragged about how his boss loved his ideas and that he was now in charge of the project. My mind clicked. Ethan had been nervous about a 5-minute presentation the week before. Now he was suddenly a star. He seemed to be living in a different reality. When the bill arrived, Ethan glanced at it and slid it toward me. I thought he was showing me the total, but instead, he said, "I'll never forget this." You know what? I doubted this was a joke. I watched him for the punchline, but there was none. Reading some updates made me cry for all the right reasons. Since many of you asked for an update, here's what unfolded in this wild situation. After Cody, who works with Ethan, informed me that my 2-year relationship had been built on a fantasy, I spent the next few days in a haze of post-breakup confusion. You know that feeling where you alternate between sobbing into a pint of ice cream and frantically scrolling through old photos to see if any of it was real? My apartment was a disaster, cooking felt impossible. Dishes piled up, laundry was neglected, and there were 7 empty takeout bags stacked in the corner. The hardest part was when I would think of something funny to text Ethan, only to remember what had happened, and it felt like being dumped all over again. Did that really happen? Kept running through my mind. Why didn't I see this coming? I avoided social media because I knew Ethan would post something infuriating. But on Wednesday morning, I caved and checked Instagram. There it was, a gym selfie of Ethan with the caption "Level Up. Know your worth." The audacity. I nearly threw my phone across the room. That night, Vanessa brought takeout and found me cocooned in my comforter like a sad burrito. She had been incredible, making sure I ate real food, listening to me vent about the same issues, and never saying, "I told you so," even though she had her doubts about Ethan from the start. While we ate, Vanessa showed me her texts with Cody. They had been chatting a lot, and he had some juicy details to share. Cody revealed that Ethan had told everyone at work that he dumped me because I was clingy and obsessed with marriage. Oh, really? Ethan had a Pinterest board titled "Future Home Ideas," claiming it was for a work project. Cody also disclosed that Ethan not only lied about his job title but was also taking credit for other people's work, which had put him on probation and could get him fired. Those late nights at the office? Just a desperate attempt to fix problems before anyone noticed. And those business trips? Complete fabrications. Just then, my phone rang. It was Ethan's mother, Sarah. I almost didn't answer, it felt awkward. But I decided to be mature about it. Sarah had always been kind to me, remembering my birthday and asking about my life. She sounded worried and asked how things were between Ethan and me. He had told his family we had a little fight but that everything was fine. A little fight? He publicly humiliated me, dumped me in front of his friends, and left me with a hefty bill. I didn't want to put her in the middle, so I explained that we were taking some time apart. Then she mentioned Ethan's birthday dinner on Saturday and how the family was excited to see me. I nearly choked on my food. Ethan had told his family we were still together and that I would be attending his birthday dinner? After hanging up, I looked at Vanessa, who was staring at me as if I had grown a second head. Was he delusional or just a pathological liar? I wondered the same thing. We devised a plan. I wouldn't ignore his family, they had always treated me well, so they deserved to know the truth about Ethan. But I wouldn't create a scene or act vengeful. I would attend the dinner as invited and tell them the truth. The next day, Cody came over for coffee. He was cool, even though he had met us through Ethan, which made things a bit awkward. He validated everything I felt and provided more specifics about Ethan's lies at work. Cody explained that Ethan's team consisted of just him and 2 interns. The big presentation he claimed to lead last month? He merely ran the slideshow while his boss spoke. Cody felt bad for me, saying he had always thought Ethan's stories about me were exaggerated. Ethan had come to work saying I was high maintenance, but I had paid for most of our dates because he claimed to be between paychecks, which I now realized probably meant he was terrible with money. Midway through our conversation, Cody received a text from their employer asking if he could help with an emergency project on Saturday night. Cody was frustrated because he had plans, but I had an idea. What if he needed to deliver something to Ethan's parents during the birthday dinner? It would be the perfect opportunity. As we worked out the details, Ethan texted me for the first time since the restaurant incident. We need to talk about what happened. I might have overreacted. Might have? Cody nearly spat out his coffee when I showed him the message. Overreacting is when you complain about someone being late, not when you publicly humiliate your girlfriend of 2 years and leave her with a $300 bill. I stayed silent, letting him sweat. The next 2 days were filled with preparation. He embraced me tightly and whispered, "You actually came. We need to talk privately." I smiled and replied, "I wouldn't miss your birthday for anything, especially since you've been telling everyone we had big news to share." The color drained from his face. Sarah cheered enthusiastically and asked if this was it. Ethan's sister shot me a knowing look. His parents joked about grandchildren, and Ethan gripped my elbow too tightly, trying to guide me down the hallway. But his mom called out that dinner was ready, and everyone should take a seat. As we settled at the dining table, Ethan eyed me warily. "Just 15 minutes out." He growled, "What are you doing here?" I thought back to the restaurant incident. I smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, Ethan, I wouldn't miss the chance to tell your family about that restaurant episode. I think they'd love to hear that story." As his mom brought out the dinner, I could see the fear in his eyes. Worth every anxious moment it took to get here. Game on. Update 2, I can now describe Ethan's birthday dinner. Apologies for the delay, I needed a mental health day after all this chaos. My neighbor had stolen my Wi-Fi password, causing all sorts of internet issues. Where did we leave off? Right. Me having dinner with Ethan's family while he anxiously watched what I would say. So there I was, sitting with Ethan's parents, Sarah and Mark, his sister Lily, his grandmother, and 2 cousins whose names I often mixed up. The table was filled with Sarah's pot roast, buttery mashed potatoes I had been dreaming about, and a gourmet salad that no one would actually eat but pretended to enjoy. The first 20 minutes were awkward. Ethan tried to steer the conversation while keeping an eye on me. I smiled and passed the bread rolls, relishing the way his left eye twitched every time I spoke. Petty? Maybe. Satisfying? Absolutely. Sarah kept the conversation flowing, bless her heart. She asked about my family, my job, and the usual small talk. She mentioned how proud they were of Ethan's promotion, and I nearly choked on my water. Ethan's face turned the same shade as the beets on the table. He claimed his team was crushing their goals and that his boss was grooming him for senior management. I just nodded, watching him sink deeper with each word. Mark, usually quiet, suddenly asked Ethan about the Johnson account. Ethan was supposedly updating his dad about a significant transaction he was leading. His vague response about strategic pivots and core competencies sounded like something out of a horoscope, completely meaningless. Lily caught my eye from across the table. She had always been the family member who Googled facts during arguments and called out any nonsense. She looked at me as if to say, "Is he for real?" Then Sarah brought up the future. She asked about our big news and how it would affect our next steps. Ethan nearly dropped his fork and muttered that we weren't ready to discuss it yet. His grandmother, who had no filter and was my favorite family member, chimed in, "So are you two moving in together or what? Because Ethan said you were apartment hunting together." News to me. We had only gotten as far as me suggesting we combine our Netflix accounts to save money. Ethan mentioned that his supervisor had given him a business card to use. I couldn't resist asking what expenses he could authorize. He mumbled something about client meals and team outings. I casually added, "Oh, speaking of dinners, Ethan took me to this amazing restaurant last week." "Honey, what was it called again? Where did you meet Liam and Noah?" His face lost color faster than my phone battery dies after 20 minutes of scrolling. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. Perfect timing. Sarah answered and exclaimed, "Oh, Cody! What a surprise!" Ethan looked like he might faint. Cody walked in, dressed in a button-up shirt and carrying a folder. He apologized for interrupting the birthday dinner but said Ethan needed to sign some business documents immediately for Monday morning. As the gracious host, Sarah invited him to join us for cake later. Ethan tried to usher Cody to the front door, but Mark insisted they could work at the table since we were all family. Cody took the empty chair beside me, which I had saved for him. Not gonna lie, Ethan was gripping his fork so tightly I was worried it would bend. Mark asked Cody about Ethan's supposedly big presentation. Cody looked bewildered at first but then seemed to understand. I could see him weighing his options as he glanced between me and Ethan. Cody finally said the presentation went well, but their boss had delivered it while Ethan and the team supported him. Mark looked confused and replied that Ethan hadn't mentioned that. Since I was feeling bold, I asked Cody about Ethan's promotion. Hey, receipts. Discussing events. Ethan tried to play the victim when Sarah brought in the cake. She set it down and asked what she had missed. Silence fell over the room. Mark gently suggested a family honesty discussion. Ethan threw a fit, accusing me of betraying his family, calling Cody a traitor, and claiming everyone was jealous of his success. Which success? He dropped his water glass, pointed at me, and shouted that a girl like me should be grateful he even bothered with me. Sarah gasped, and I think his grandmother swore. Lily shook her head, clearly unfazed. I kept my cool and replied, I was only grateful for finally seeing him for who he truly was. Ethan stormed out, slamming the door so hard that one of Sarah's beautiful plates cracked. The aftermath felt oddly calm. Sarah apologized profusely, Mark looked unhappy and exhausted, and Lily cleaned up the spilled water. Cody apologized for the awkwardness but said he couldn't just sit there and watch Ethan lie to everyone. The strangest thing happened next. Instead of sending me home, they offered me cake. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, his co-worker, and his family sat down to enjoy birthday cake without him. In any other scenario, it might have been awkward, but it wasn't. After cake, I helped Sarah clean the kitchen. She kept apologizing, claiming she had no idea Ethan had lied so much. She seemed heartbroken, not just about what he had done to me but about the transformation of her son. I felt awful for her. No parent wants to discover their child is a liar. She softly asked if there had been any signs earlier, and I admitted that I had overlooked red flags because I wanted to believe the best about him. Mark stopped me before I left, apologizing for his son's actions and thanking me for my honesty. He looked disheartened, as if he were trying to figure out where they had gone wrong in raising him. I assured him it wasn't their fault, Ethan had made his own choices. Cody offered to walk me to my car, perhaps sensing that I needed time to process everything. As we walked, he mentioned that Ethan had been having work issues for months, taking credit for others' ideas, lying about his accomplishments, and even forging customer correspondence. This was his last warning before termination. Ethan's desperate drive for success suddenly made twisted sense. His entire persona was built on a foundation of false prosperity and position. Considering that, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Thanks to Cody's support, I returned home feeling emotionally drained yet relieved, like taking off an uncomfortable bra at the end of a long day. I apologize for the odd analogy, but you understand. When I got home, I saw that Vanessa had left 3 missed calls for updates. Just as I was about to call her back, Ethan texted me, "You ruined everything." I remained silent. I blocked his number and started preparing tea. I should have been terrified or upset, but I was just exhausted and maybe even proud of standing up to him. I thought that was it. However, the next morning, I found 13 missed calls on my phone from Ethan's mom, sister, Cody, and several unknown numbers. Ethan had lost it overnight, and his voicemails became increasingly agitated. Update 3, I can now explain those 13 missed calls. I appreciate your patience while I processed everything. Sorry for the delay, my laptop decided to do a surprise 4-hour update just as I sat down to write. So, where were we? My phone was filled with calls from Ethan's relatives and Cody on Sunday morning following the birthday dinner debacle. At first, I thought someone had died. 5 missed calls from Sarah, 3 from Lily, 2 from Cody, and 3 from unknown numbers made my stomach drop as I read through the notifications. Sarah answered on the first ring, sounding exhausted. Her voicemails were just variations of, "Sabrina, please call me as soon as you can." She sounded genuinely frightened. Apparently, Ethan had gone on a bender after storming out of the birthday dinner. He showed up at his ex-girlfriend's place drunk and raving about how I had ruined his life at 2 a.m. Lily had to pick up the ex, who I didn't even know existed, and understandably, she was terrified. There was more. Ethan had spent the night sending rambling messages to almost everyone we knew. He texted Cody, threatening to ruin him at work. Good luck with that when you're about to be fired. He wrote a lengthy Facebook post about being besieged by snakes and how people would regret betraying him. Most concerning was that he sent his friend Pablo my address in a private message, threatening to punish me for humiliating him.